Crickets. It's been crickets. Amber, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay, Amber? Where's Amber Cox? Amber Cox was called out, and she's being exposed once again for having no interest in celebrating Caitlin Clark's greatness. Once again, Amber Cox is MIA under a rock somewhere, not celebrate. She had nothing to say about Caitlin Clark's 45-point double-double, the first time in WNBA.
For the first time in WNBA history, a player delivered a 45-point double-double, a performance so extraordinary that it stands alone in the league's record books. No player in WNBA history had ever accomplished it. It wasn't just another impressive stat line. It was a historic milestone that instantly became one of the greatest individual performances the league has ever witnessed. Yet what happened afterward left many fans surprised. The Indiana Fever's general manager, the executive responsible for building the franchise and promoting its biggest achievements, remained completely silent. There was no celebratory social media post, no public congratulations, no repost highlighting the historic accomplishment. Nothing. For many observers, that silence became almost as much of a story as the performance itself. Supporters expected the organization to immediately recognize a record-breaking achievement that had captured the attention of the entire basketball world. Instead, the lack of any public response sparked widespread discussion across social media. Some fans questioned whether the silence was intentional, while others argued it was simply an oversight or a decision to keep the focus on the team rather than one individual. Regardless of the reason, the contrast was impossible to ignore. A history-making performance had just been delivered, yet one of the franchise's most important voices chose not to publicly acknowledge it, leaving fans debating not only the record itself, but also the reaction that followed.
Still hasn't posted or reposted about Caitlin Clark's historic 45-point double-double. Salmon, catfish, tilapia. It's smelling real fishy around here. I just gotta call it like it is. What Ben Daniels say, we gotta call a spade a spade. Shout out to Ben Daniels. Amber Cox, you've been awfully quiet about Caitlin Clark's historic feat. You was real loud about everything else going on. When Caitlin come back, you get real quiet. It's real silent on that account, Amber. It's real silent on that account, and people calling it out. I'm just saying, look, maybe you went on vacation in the middle of the season while you're supposed to be at work. Maybe you got sick. I don't know, but the people want to know, where are you and why have you been so silent about Caitlin Clark's barrage? Amber Cox's last post that she retweeted is about Kelsey Mitchell. Nothing about Caitlin Clark and her historic numbers. Very, very telling.
For many fans, the silence felt incredibly revealing. It didn't appear to be the result of a hectic news cycle or an important announcement overshadowing the moment. Amber Cox remained active on social media throughout the day. She posted updates, acknowledged other Indiana Fever players, and celebrated different moments involving the team. What many supporters noticed was that there appeared to be no public recognition of Caitlin Clark's historic performance. That observation quickly fueled speculation online. Soon, reports and rumors began circulating on social media claiming that the silence may not have been simply a personal choice, but part of a broader organizational decision. Some unverified reports even alleged that Amber Cox had instructed Fever players to avoid publicly celebrating Clark's record-setting game. Those claims have not been officially confirmed, but they sparked intense debate among fans and media alike. Before discussing those reports, or what they could potentially mean for the Indiana Fever, it's important to understand why Clark's performance generated so much attention in the first place. Because the reaction only makes sense when you understand the magnitude of what happened on the court. A 45-point double-double. A statistical achievement unlike anything previously recorded in WNBA history. It wasn't simply another great scoring night. According to league records, it was the first time a player had ever combined those specific numbers in a single WNBA game. This wasn't just another accomplishment that would eventually be buried in a season recap. It was the kind of performance that dominates national sports coverage, trends across social media, and becomes part of the league's historical record. Moments like these are typically celebrated throughout an organization. Teams often highlight milestone performances because they showcase both the success of the individual player and the strength of the franchise as a whole. That's why some fans were surprised by what they perceived as a lack of public recognition from the Fever's front office. Supporters pointed out that Amber Cox had been active online, acknowledging other team achievements while not publicly commenting on Clark's record-setting performance. Whether that decision was intentional or simply a matter of communication remains unclear, but it quickly became another topic of discussion alongside the game itself. Even before this historic performance, some fans had already been tracking what they viewed as a pattern in the Fever's social media activity. Posts celebrating team victories, milestones by other players, and general franchise updates appeared regularly. As a result, some supporters questioned why Clark's biggest accomplishments often seemed to receive less public attention from certain official voices within the organization. Then the online rumors escalated. Several social media accounts began claiming that players had allegedly been discouraged from publicly celebrating Clark's historic game. It's important to emphasize that these claims remain unverified, and no official evidence has been presented confirming that such a directive was ever issued by the Indiana Fever organization. Nevertheless, the allegations spread rapidly because, if true, they would represent something far more significant than a quiet social media account. There's a major difference between a front office executive choosing not to post and an organization allegedly discouraging players from expressing support for a teammate. Professional athletes understand how organizations operate. They recognize leadership, team culture, and the influence that executives can have over the environment inside a locker room. Even without explicit instructions, players often become aware of organizational expectations through everyday interactions and internal dynamics. Whether any of that occurred in this situation remains unknown. However, the reports circulating online raise questions about leadership, communication, and the culture surrounding one of the WNBA's most closely watched franchises. For now, those allegations remain exactly that, allegations. But the conversation they sparked has become almost as significant as the historic performance itself, leaving fans eager to see whether anyone inside the Indiana Fever organization will eventually address the controversy directly.
Fans, we appreciate you. Can't thank you enough for always showing up for us at home and on the road. We hear you and are incredibly grateful for the support. Okay, and in response to Caitlin Clark's Stan account, Amber Cox said, "Nonsense. You know who is also happy after any win? Caitlin Clark, because this team is full of people who celebrate and care for one another. And like all of them, she's a great teammate. We all cannot wait to have Cece back on the court. Enough with this
ridiculous narrative." Those were the words Amber Cox used publicly when responding to criticism surrounding what some fans viewed as a pattern of limited public recognition for Caitlin Clark's accomplishments. Cox dismissed the criticism as a fan-created narrative, describing it as unfounded and emphasizing that the Indiana Fever celebrates its players authentically as a team. Then, according to later reports circulating online, a very different story began to emerge. Some unverified claims alleged that, shortly after those public comments, players were privately discouraged from drawing additional attention to Clark's historic performance. Those allegations have not been confirmed by the Indiana Fever or independent evidence. However, if such claims were ever proven true, critics argue they would represent a significant contradiction between a public message promoting unity and an alleged private effort to limit public celebration. That perceived gap is what has fueled so much discussion online. Whenever an organization's public messaging appears inconsistent with allegations about its internal culture, fans naturally begin asking difficult questions. Whether those questions ultimately lead anywhere depends on evidence, not speculation. For Caitlin Clark, this discussion carries added weight because of the way she has handled attention throughout her professional career. Time and again, she has faced enormous expectations, intense media scrutiny, criticism from opposing fan bases, and constant debate surrounding nearly every aspect of her game. Rather than allowing those outside pressures to define her, Clark has repeatedly responded with performances that have broken records, attracted massive audiences, and helped generate unprecedented attention for the WNBA. External criticism is one challenge, but many athletes would argue that perceived issues within their own organization can feel very different. Players naturally expect support from the coaches, executives, and front office staff responsible for building the team's culture and helping everyone succeed. Amber Cox is not an opposing player or a television commentator. She serves as the Indiana Fever's general manager, a position responsible for helping guide the franchise both competitively and organizationally. Because of that role, every public action or lack of action is often examined closely by fans. That's why the online allegations generated so much attention. The discussion wasn't simply about one social media post. It became a broader conversation about leadership, organizational culture, and whether one of the league's biggest stars was receiving the public support many fans believed she deserved. It's important to stress that the claims regarding any alleged internal directive remain unverified. Without official confirmation or independently established evidence, they should be viewed as allegations rather than established fact. Even so, the controversy has continued to dominate online conversation, with supporters on both sides debating what the silence meant and whether the Indiana Fever will eventually address the speculation directly. If nothing else, the episode highlights how closely every decision surrounding Caitlin Clark is now scrutinized, both on and off the court, as one of the WNBA's most influential and closely watched players.
In life is the cost of praise. By nature of individuals praising you, by nature of individuals putting you on a pedestal, others are going to try to rip the pegs out from that pedestal, and others are going to criticize you if for no other reason than they despise
That perspective has
get.
become central to the conversation now unfolding around Amber Cox and the Indiana Fever. According to unverified reports circulating online, the controversy wasn't simply about team chemistry or normal front office decision-making. Instead, some critics have claimed the issue centered on whether Caitlin Clark's historic achievement received the level of public recognition many believed it deserved. Those allegations remain unconfirmed. However, they have fueled intense debate because Clark's performance wasn't just another impressive game. It was widely described as one of the most remarkable statistical performances in WNBA history, making any perceived lack of acknowledgement especially noticeable to fans. For many supporters, that's where the frustration begins. Their concern isn't focused on criticism from opposing teams, media personalities, or rival fan bases. Instead, they question whether Clark received the same level of public support from within her own organization that they believe would normally accompany a historic accomplishment. That perception, whether accurate or not, is what continues to drive the discussion. Supporters have pointed to what they view as a pattern in the Indiana Fever's social media activity. They note that milestones involving other players, team victories, sponsor announcements, community events, and general franchise updates have frequently been highlighted through official channels. Then, according to those same fans, when Clark reached another historic milestone, they perceived far less public acknowledgement from certain organizational voices. Whether that reflects a deliberate strategy, differences in communication, or simple coincidence has not been established. No official evidence has confirmed the online allegations that an internal directive existed. Nevertheless, the perception itself has become a major story. In today's sports landscape, fans closely monitor not only what organizations choose to celebrate, but also what they don't. Every social media post, every public statement, and every omission is analyzed in real time. For an athlete as closely followed as Caitlin Clark, even silence can become part of the conversation. That's why this debate has extended far beyond one record-breaking performance. It has evolved into a broader discussion about organizational communication, public support, and how franchises choose to recognize the accomplishments of their biggest stars. Whether the Indiana Fever addresses those online allegations in the future remains to be seen. Until then, much of the conversation continues to be driven by fan observations, speculation, and differing interpretations rather than confirmed facts.
Flee quiet about Caitlin Clark's historic feat. You was real loud about everything else going on. When Caitlin come back, you get real quiet. It's real silent on that account, Amber.
For critics, the silence has become the story. They argue it wasn't the result of a general absence from social media or a lack of engagement by the front office. Instead, they believe the pattern appeared selective, pointing to moments when other team accomplishments received public recognition while Clark's historic performances, in their view, received noticeably less attention. That perception has fueled much of the online debate. When combined with the unverified allegations that players were allegedly discouraged from publicly celebrating Clark's record-setting game, some fans have interpreted the situation as evidence of a broader organizational issue. It's important to note that those allegations have not been confirmed by the Indiana Fever or supported by publicly verified evidence. Even so, supporters who believe the reports describe what they see as a pattern rather than a series of isolated incidents. Others strongly disagree, arguing there is no proof of any coordinated effort and that social media activity alone cannot establish organizational intent. The disagreement itself has become one of the biggest talking points surrounding the franchise. The discussion also extends beyond this single game. Some commentators have connected it to other controversies involving the Indiana Fever, including debates over coaching decisions, player rotations, media messaging, and how the organization has responded publicly during previous moments involving Caitlin Clark. Whether those events are actually connected is a matter of opinion, not established fact. Still, many fans believe they reflect a broader communication issue within the organization. What cannot be disputed is Clark's impact on the league. Since entering the WNBA, she has helped generate unprecedented television ratings, sold-out arenas, increased merchandise sales, and attracted millions of new viewers to women's basketball. Her influence has extended well beyond the court, making her one of the league's most recognizable and commercially valuable athletes. Because of that influence, nearly every organizational decision involving Clark receives extraordinary public attention. Supporters expect a franchise's biggest milestones to be recognized and celebrated openly. When that expectation isn't met, speculation often fills the gap. Some fans have pointed to organizations around the league that publicly highlight star players after historic performances, arguing that such recognition strengthens both the player and the franchise. Others believe the Fever have handled the situation appropriately and caution against drawing sweeping conclusions from social media activity alone. Regardless of where people stand, the controversy has continued to grow because no official explanation has addressed the online speculation in detail. As a result, every new post, every public appearance, and every statement from team leadership is being closely analyzed by fans and media alike. Some observers have even begun speculating about Clark's long-term future with the franchise. At this point, however, there is no credible evidence that Clark intends to leave the Indiana Fever or has requested any change in her situation. Those discussions remain speculative. For now, the focus remains on whether the organization will publicly respond to the criticism and clarify its position. Many fans simply want transparency. They want to understand whether the perceived pattern is merely a coincidence, a communication decision, or something else entirely. Until more information becomes available, the online debate is likely to continue. What is certain is that Caitlin Clark's historic accomplishments have become some of the most closely watched moments in the WNBA, and the public reaction, both on and off the court, shows no signs of slowing down.